All right. Welcome, welcome. May 3rd, 2023. I cannot believe this year is just going by so fast. And I'm so grateful you guys have joined me for another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. That was getting ready to come on. I just felt this overwhelming gratitude for everybody who's ever been not only a part of these amazing weekly conversations going on, gosh, almost 3 years now. Today, we're going to record episode 103. It's just mind-boggling to me, but I just feel such incredible gratitude for the knowledge that I have gained through A Course in Miracles that has allowed me to open up my heart to feel the love, the peace, the joy that I feel. It's incomprehensible to a mind that hasn't felt it. But when you feel it, it just blows your mind. The mind can no longer take hold of controlling your life. The mind becomes a servant. The ego part, which is part of the human journey. And let me just say, in the 3D experience, the ego, yes, it is great, Ginger. In the 3D experience, the ego is a necessary aspect. You cannot think yourself a human unless you have an ego. It is the ego that thinks you are a human. Those two go together. However, as we ascend into the fifth dimension, there is no need for an ego because you don't have to think you're a human. You know you're divine. So that shift from thinking that you're just a human is what facilitates the experience of separation. It facilitates the experience of individuation. When we understand that that really is the only thing the ego was supposed to do, give God an experience of individuation so that I can know myself as separate from you, Jody, so that I can have a relationship with you, even though you and I are made of the same consciousness, we're made of the same energy. We are both parts of the same essence. We're fractals, dancing in consciousness, in the mind of God, having an experience of the other. We could not do that if it wasn't for the ego in the 3D experience. Now, you don't need that to know that you are an aspect of God in the fifth dimension. And that's where we're headed, to know that we are aspects of God, but at the same time, understanding that there is no need for hierarchy. The 3D world was corrupted when we began to play in the game of hierarchy. And the only reason that that's possible is because God loves us so much that it gives us free will, meaning there is absolutely no punishment, there is no retribution, there is nothing that God will do to anybody, to anything, if it chooses to have an experience in darkness, because that's what love does. Love says, you do you, and I'm going to love you no matter what. Because if we really understand what's going on here, anything that we do that hurts us, anything that blocks us, anything that creates suffering for ourselves, that's its own punishment. You are the one not experiencing the love, the joy, the peace, the connection, the collaboration, the co-creation, the joy, the fun, the exhilaration that comes from realizing that we are individualized aspects for the purpose of relationship. When we understand that that's what we were supposed to use, these separate bodies, was to go into co-creation, to go into relationship, because it uplifts all of consciousness. It expands. God is infinite because we extended. God is not infinite because by itself, it just keeps doing its own thing. God is infinite because there are gazillions, there's not a number big enough. It's infinite of expressions, of individualized expressions that are expanding the kingdom. When in the 3D world, the ego gets trained, as we have for thousands of years, indoctrinated into believing things that are not true, we little by little pull ourselves out of infinity and begin to condense and contract and make ourselves so individualized, so tiny, so contracted, so scared, because that's what happens when you see yourself, oh, it's you all alone, and then there's everybody else. You begin to feel, okay, I got to take care of myself. Now, I am watching that with my little grandson right now. He just turned 2 years old. And in the way that we play the human game, he's right on track. And he sees mommy and daddy, and he needs an abwe or anybody who's around him. He sees them and can feel safe, and he goes on and does his thing. If he sees anybody and he were to not feel safe, he would begin to go, oh, what do I have to do to take care of myself? And when that happens, and it's going to happen, it's going to be inevitable. There's going to be a day that he's going to find himself where mommy and daddy maybe step outside the house to go do something outside, and he's calling. That hasn't happened yet, not to my knowledge, but the day will come that he's going to find himself alone, needing to be taken care of, and nobody is there. The ego is going to have a field day. It's going to go into, oh no, it's all up to me to take care of me. Well, here's the beautiful thing. The more of us that take the teachings of the Course in Miracles, that train our mind to think with God, meaning to think with love, to understand the truth of who we are, to get the rules for the game of life, which means simply, when you understand that your mind can hold two thought systems, one with God and one blocking God. That's all that ego is a block to God. Ego is nothing. You don't have an ego per se. You have thoughts that create an egoic identity. That's all that it is. When you don't think those thoughts, you don't have an egoic identity. I mean, it really, truly is that simple. But when we have to protect ourselves and we begin to rely on ourselves and not on God, we are relying on an immature aspect of self, because those thoughts, that egoic identity gets formed when we are children. It actually begins in the womb. It begins when we feel the contraction of our mother. If she's tight and tense, if there's arguing around, if she's scared, the child is feeling it, because we are energy beings. So her contraction makes us squeeze. So we already know, oh, it's not okay to be me, because when you are being you, you're open, you're expanded, you are extending. That's what God is, an infinite extension of love. When you don't feel safe to be you, you contract and pull back. That's what the ego is. It's I'm not safe here, so I'm going to start thinking on my own. And that thinking starts when we're immature. So my sweet little grandson is learning, because he's got parents who are understanding the importance of helping him tap into his own truth, so that no matter where he is, even if he's alone, one day he will know, you know what, I'm okay. I'm safe. I can tap into God. Mom and dad may not be in the room with me, or mom and dad may be outside in the yard, and I'm in here because I just woke up from a nap. So I'm here in my crib by myself. I can tap into God. And to be able to learn from a young age to tap into God is to tap into that which is eternal. It is to tap into an unbelievable source of well-being, a source of creativity, a source of love, of peace, of joy, of total and complete serenity and clarity and creativity, because that's what happens when we tap into the creative source. Welcome, everybody. So glad you guys are here. So anyways, I am feeling deep gratitude for anybody who is willing to go through the process of training our mind, because training our mind to think with God is not only one of the hardest things any of us will ever have to do, because you're literally going to go through a process like a turtle pulling off its shell. You're going to be left totally and completely naked in front of God, meaning all of your thoughts, all of your beliefs, everything that you hid behind the fakery of the masks that we put on. Oh yeah, I'm a really nice person because I'm trying to get something out of you. Or I know more than you because I'm special. I've got all these degrees to cover up insecurities that maybe I'm not so smart. Because some teacher said something to me in third grade. Or we put on these masks of being such helpers, but really, which was one of my masks, I was a helper because I was clinging to people. I didn't want anybody to abandon me because I experienced abandonment when my dad left when I was a little girl. So whatever masks we are wearing, the ego thinks that those masks protect us. But here's the thing. They appear to protect us because they give us a false sense of safety. I can take care of me, but they become a prison where the real you can't come out. The real you does not feel safe. You create this idea that it is not okay to be you as you know yourself to be in your own quiet moments. You've got to pretend and put on a show because the ego has convinced you that this is not a safe world, that you got to do it all by yourself, and that nobody loves you, nobody treated you the way that you knew you should be treated. All of those ideas that the ego is using. And again, there is no such thing as an ego, but all of those beliefs together combined into an identity. They combined into a thought system that blocks God. And it's simple. It blocks God because if it tells you I'm all alone, I got to protect myself, and God is saying, no, we're all one. All alone, all one. I'm all alone. We're all one. Well, guess what happens? If you believe that you're all alone, you're blocking the truth that we're all one. You're not going to appear in this world. You're not going to move about your day-to-day life in service. You're not going to move about in healthy relationships because you're not going to be transparent. You are going to be protecting yourself. So it's really crucial that when we move through this journey of training our mind to see all of these thoughts and beliefs, the only part of you that is resisting seeing those lies is the part of you that doesn't want to let go of operating with those lies. So for I'm not going to say for how long, because it's different for everybody. I have known people who've been on this journey for 3, 4, 5 decades, and they still believe the thoughts of the ego, even though they know what the truth of God is. They still revert to, and you know that you are listening to the ego if you are in fear, if you're judging, if you are plotting, if you're preparing for the future, because that's what the ego does, planning for the future. If you're not living in this now moment, totally and completely now trusting and just doing what it is that you're doing because you want to do it now, if you're planning for the future, you are still listening to the voice of the ego. I do this happens to me. I just happen to be so practiced at knowing the distinction, the difference between my ego voice and what God is saying to me, that I can very quickly shift and lift out of that, because there is no reason to listen to the voice of the ego, because you're always going to keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. You cannot get a different result from a repetitive pattern. It is not possible. But the ego convinces you that that's what keeps you safe. And that's why for thousands of years, for thousands of lifetimes, we incarnate and we move through karma, because karma is how we get to see the opposite aspects of what the ego is showing us. That chasing for pleasure and then the disappointment that brings pain. That only happens in an ego-run world. In a God-run world, there is no such thing as pleasure and pain, because you're not chasing something out of lack, and you don't have to experience the inevitability of the disappointment that thing that you were chasing is not going to fill you, because you don't need to chase anything outside of you. When you are listening to the voice for God, your inner guided, you're inner directed, you're moving from a place within that is whole, that is perfect, that is complete, that is oozing creativity, oozing the desire to collaborate. From that place, you live in the now. You're just focused on what you're doing in this now moment, trusting all the while that everything is going to get taken care of. See, in the world of the ego, we've been trained, deliberately trained, because this is what we have to understand. This is why it's so important to wake up. Learning about spirituality is wonderful. It puts us on the bridge. And as you know, I always do the hands, the bridge from the 3D thinking to the 5D thinking, being, knowing, can take however long it takes. It can take thousands of lifetimes. You can make a big leap in this lifetime and be able to move yourself, ground yourself in the truth of who you are. But here is what's so important that we understand. Those of us who get to cross the bridge where our consciousness has shifted completely to aligning with God, guess what our work is? Well, the work is going to show up in one of two ways. One way is you're going to hold that frequency for the collective. You are going to absolutely hold the frequency of love. You might even be a monk. You might even be a stay-at-home mom somewhere holding the frequency because you know the truth of who we are. You're just playing a role. You're an individuated aspect of God playing stay-at-home mom or maybe even bum on the street. But you're holding the frequency because your inner space is radiating pure light. You know the truth and you're extending love. That is helping the collective. The other way to be in service is you turn around and you point your light, you shine your light for others to know how to cross the bridge. And you do that in a gazillion ways. You could be like me, a teacher, a coach. You could be in a medical field that says, okay, we're going to shift things. We're not going to do things the old way. We're going to do things holistically. We are going to tap in. We're going to teach you how to tap into your own well-being inside. There are so many. This is part of why I was so in gratitude this morning for those who have studied the teachings that set us free. And by the way, Course in Miracles is a required course. And Course in Miracles says it's a required course because it teaches truth. But it's not the only course that teaches truth. You can go out and find all kinds of different courses that teach truth. When you land on one that helps you come inside, listen to the voice of God and not ego, that is the course for you. That was required for you. There are so many that have crossed the bridge. And you don't have to be all the way on the other side of the bridge. You can be anywhere on the bridge where you know the truth. And it's usually you have to be 51% grounded in truth. You can't be listening to the ego as much. You have to be listening more to God, because that's when greed goes away. You stop doing things selfishly. That's when fear goes away. You don't care what anybody else thinks about you. You're not interested in making friends and influencing people from the perspective of your ego. You are totally grounded in service to humanity because you're listening to a void inside guiding you. And as it is taught in the Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus said 2,000 years ago, if you don't bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you. If you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. If we don't shine our light and our truth, it destroys us eventually. Not tapping into that wisdom inside and listening to the lies of the ego over time destroys us, because it causes us to shrink, to contract, to forget who we are. And we're spinning our wheels like a hamster, doing the same thing, expecting different results. And we'll do that day after day, year after year, decade after decade. And then you look back and go, oh my God, I've been doing the same fucking thing all this time and my life hasn't changed. And I said 20 years ago I was going to do it. I said last January, my New Year's resolution, I was going to do it. And I'm still doing the same thing. I found myself actually having that conversation with a client of mine that I was coaching. And it was so sweet. Yesterday, we were talking about this. And he said, Laina, why do you keep coaching me? You know, we end up talking sometimes about the same thing. And I said, because I love you. Because I love you. I know I've been telling you the same thing for about 3-4 years. And we don't make a whole lot of progress. But if you want to keep coming, if you feel safe here and you want to keep hearing the same thing, I'll tell you the same thing. We are all going to have to come to the point that we make a decision. Have we learned enough? Are we done learning about the truth of who we are? Are we prepared to be the truth of who we are? Are we prepared to give up fear? Are you prepared to talk and tell people that you love God? Are you prepared to tell people, I get my teachings from Jesus? Are you prepared? If this is one of the ways that you get it, of course, if you get it from Buddha, if you get it from Krishna, it doesn't matter who you get it from. Are you prepared to unapologetically state that you believe that love is the only way? Are you prepared to say, you know what, I'm not going to judge you, because who am I to judge you? I don't know what's right for you and not. I don't even know what's right and wrong for me. All I know is I have decided that I'm going to listen to the voice for God. When we unapologetically stand for the truth of who we are, we become a beacon in this world. And this world right now, we are at a point of bifurcation. I've been saying that this decade, we have a 10-year window. By the grace of God, we have a 10-year window to wake the fuck up. A 10-year window to make a decision. Am I going to move towards the light, or am I going to stay in darkness? Now, there is no punishment for anybody who wants to stay in the darkness, because here's what is so amazing about God. When you begin to feel God, it is the most unbelievable love for everybody. It is a recognition that everybody is either ascending back to the truth of who they are, or they are descending and going to the lowest point that they need to get to wake up. And like in AA, in Alcoholics Anonymous, everybody has to hit their bottom. Everybody has to say, you know what? I am done with learning about the truth. I am ready to be it. I'm ready to embody it. I am ready to follow my heart. I am ready to stop being afraid. I am ready to give up needing to have safety so that I can be moved like a leaf blowing in the wind, be moved by God to wherever it is that I need to go. This is the decade that we have to make that choice. And again, it's not because it's a punishment, but because the world, the universe operates in cycles. Just as we have the 4 seasons, just as we have every child goes through stages. There's the infant stage, there's the toddler stage, there's the middle school years, there's the high school years, and there's the adulthood. Everything moves through stages. When you come to know the mind of God, when you begin to reason with God, reason like God, you understand that everything has a cycle. Because all of our journeys are like a spiral. They all come from allness, from our being one with God, knowing that we go into an experience of feeling the individuation, beginning to express ourselves, to experience ourselves as other than God, so we can know God. That's the whole point, is you come to know God. And we spiral, but the spiral begins to get tighter and tighter and tighter as we make a decision to descend into more forgetfulness of the truth of who we are. So as we spiral and we come to the place where it's all me, I'm the 2-year-old that's scared and I got to take care of me. It's, it's all up to me because I can't trust anybody else. When we condense ourselves into that small idea of ourselves, it's simply to have the experience of going, you know what? I don't want that anymore. And then we begin the process of ascension. You spiral out and you begin to expand yourself, and you begin to see things from a greater, grander perspective. Well, when we do that, when we are ascending, you get to see more clearly those who are descending. You get to observe, listen, that person just made a choice for something that is egoic instead of a choice for something that is loving and expansive. You get to observe it. You become aware of where they are headed because you've been there, done that. That gives you the ability to have perceptions that allows you to use the teachings that we've been studying here. And we're in chapter 30. We're studying the new beginning. This is the new beginning. This decade that we're in is the decade for people to make a choice for a new beginning. If by the time, and it's approaching, I mean, we're only in the year 2023. If within the next couple of years, you have not woken up, and of course, I'm not talking to you because I know you are awakening, if not already awake, because it is a process. So to be able to see those who are not awakening, who are double down in their fears, double down in their judgments, double down in wanting to preserve their ability to operate in corruption, to take from others, to do whatever is selfishly oriented, because the ego is all about the self. When we align with God, it's all about the collective, service to self, service to others. This is about me. This is about we. That's it, period. There's no other way about it. It really, truly is black and white. It's very clear to see once you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. You can hear people who are moving down on their journey, or people who are ascending, but maybe they're a step below you. So you, from the spiral up here, you can see where they're at here. Like going on a staircase, the higher up you go, the more you can see. And there, you don't have to be off the staircase to be able to see the floor you're going to, and you can already see where you're headed. But you can also see, looking down, where somebody is. As we become more self-aware, as our mind is trained into understanding the truth of who we are, we have a very important role to play right now. This is actually what I'm being called to do more of. And this won't be new to you guys who've been listening to me for a little while, especially through this format. But for a long time, I wanted to help people wake up. I wanted to help people understand the steps to awakening. That doesn't appeal to me anymore, because people who are waking up, they will be guided to wherever they go. I want to work with people who have been on this journey to awaken, because this is what jazzes me, but they're ready to transcend the ego. Because the first part of the journey, that when we're on that bridge, the first part of the journey requires that you begin to understand the voice of the ego. And most people will not see their ego until they're quite a bit down the road. That's what I like to help people see their ego, which means to be able to be brutally honest with yourself and call out the thoughts that have become spiritualized, that lets you talk flowery talk. I know I did it. I've been there, done that. And we talk about ascension and we talk about all these things, but then go and be in fear in your own room. And when nobody's watching, you're in judgment of other people. You're in fear. You're still doubting that God loves you. That to me is what's exciting. But to try and convince somebody that they want to wake up, that's too much work. Because if you are prepared to move down that spiral, to have your ground, hit ground bottom moment, nothing's going to stop that. No amount of somebody trying to convince you otherwise is going to stop that. You've got to go on your journey, because it is through that journey that you are going to come to find your own truth. Nobody can give it to you. But when you are ascending and you become curious, again, you got to be at a certain level of spiritual maturity that you are prepared to see the truth. And oftentimes to see the truth requires that you be willing to take the blinders off and see how the world is running. The Course in Miracles is so clear about all of the things that we believe are helpful, like government, like medicine, like education system, that are not. To be able to see what is no longer helpful, you must operate in an incredible level of integrity, of honesty, where you don't bullshit yourself anymore. That is to me a quintessential moment in the journey, when you realize, so the whole world out there is projected out of me. Because when you understand that the corrupt government is a reflection of the corruption inside, When you understand that the education system that has lied to you is a reflection of you not listening to the truth inside. When you understand that the medical system out there is a reflection of you not listening to the well-being that is within you. So we've projected out there these systems that we need to give us what we believe we no longer have. That level of total and complete honesty. You mean it's all in me? Yep, it's all in you. That is when the seeking ends. That is when the grounding ourselves in the truth of who we are really begins to take hold in earnest. That's a very scary moment when you have to admit that you have been wrong about everything that you've known your whole life. Because until you are totally clear that you are no longer giving power to the world outside, because you have come inside, and from inside, you are going to project the world that you prefer. You are going to project the world of those who are in integrity, who are in government because they're in service to humanity, who are in education because they are in service to bringing forth what is already within you, that is the truth, to those who are in medicine because they are in service to teaching you how to tap into your natural well-being. None of them are taking credit for what they're giving you. All of them are in service to co-creating a world that works for all of us. You cannot have that new earth while you continue to believe that the old earth is what is real. That moment, that shift in consciousness, hey, sweetie, enjoy your what you're getting ready to go to. Thanks for being with us. When you are ready to look at the outer world and see your participation in the co-creation of the very world that has caused the suffering of so many, not by blaming yourself. This is what's so beautiful about this incredible journey. When you train your mind, there's no guilt, there's no blame. There's a recognition. While I was asleep, I participated in a nightmare. It's a simple recognition that the mind has to be retrained to think differently. And when we think differently, we behave differently. And then you become the change you want to see in the world. And then you connect with those who have become the change that they want to see in the world. And then we have a new earth populated by all these people with one goal in mind. And that is the goal of expressing the truth that is inside each and every one of us and allow it to express itself uniquely as it wants to be expressed. This world of having all these rules and regulations and laws, and these people can do these and those people can't do that, and a world that tries to control people and create specialness, that's so 2020. That's so old. And for many of us, so boring. So we don't give that power. We give power to what it is that we prefer to experience. And in this lesson, the new beginning, these are the steps to experience a new beginning. So let me recap these steps, because it's a decision that you have to make continuously, ongoing. When you are grounding yourself in the truth of who you are constantly choosing again and again and again for the truth, because the ego was created through repetition. You repeated the same lies in your mind. You repeated the same things that you had to go outside of yourself to get healed, to get well. We will continue to move on this trajectory and go to others for assistance who feel certain about where healing comes from, and they will assist us in this journey. That's going to happen. Let that be okay. At some point, you don't need to go to anybody outside of you, because you will not get sick, because you will not entertain that frequency in your consciousness. But until we're there, we are using those beings who have ascended in consciousness, that instead of using the old medical establishment, they're using natural things, because we're activating what is natural, bringing back to life that which has been completely decimated by a handful. The air has been polluted, the water has been polluted, the food has been polluted. Why? Because our minds have been polluted to believe and accept things that were just simply not true. So our frequency was lower. We couldn't feel the difference between the frequency of good food or good air. We couldn't feel it because we were numbed out, and we wanted junk food. We were okay with maybe bottled water that was contaminated because we just didn't know any different. We would drink it not knowing it might have had fluoride in it or things that were harmful. We didn't have the ability to feel the frequency of what was harmful. Well, the more you begin to ascend, and the more you begin, I mean, this happens to me. I am really, my body has become so pure. Once in the last, I guess it's been 4 years, I stopped eating meat. I have noticed 3.5, I have noticed that I can now sense, even when I'm eating vegetables, a vegetable that might have some kind of a genetic modification, I can't eat it. I just can't. Where before I could eat, well, it was a vegetable, so I could eat it. It's becoming so much more easier for me to feel, to sense. I can walk by the water aisle, bottled water aisle, and I can run my hand and I can tell you what feels in resonance with me and what does not. Because as my consciousness has been elevated, my DNA has been activated to feel more, to become more sensitive to that which is of a higher frequency. So as we progress on this bridge to become aligned with the truth of who we are going to be attracted to those who practice at a higher frequency. So maybe a doctor that is healing, let's say through allopathic, not allopathic, but homeopathic kinds of medicine. Well, they're still giving you something external to make you feel better. They understand the vibrational frequency of what they're giving you, and they know that if you take this, it's going to help your body move to a higher frequency. So all of these amazing beings that have crossed the bridge, who have trained their minds, who are no longer working for the money, because there are only two masters. We've heard that for thousands of years. You're going to worship money, which is what the ego uses to gain self-worth. Self-worth and net worth have been tied together for thousands of years to send us into that slavery system. Or you worship God, and God is about freedom. God is about everybody is free to choose whatever path they want to choose, even if you want to go down and stay in the 3D world and play in the negative AI side of things, or you want to play in the 5 dimension using AI in service to the collective. It's all about, are you doing things with God? Are you doing things for self-gratification? Typically for money. There's got to be some kind of a reward. Money and power, they go together. The choice is very simple. The new beginning is to understand the thoughts that you must have so that you can get in touch with what is going on inside of you that either moves you to God or keeps you stuck in ego. Very simple. Decide. So simple. You get up in the morning and you decide, what kind of a day do I want? That's what has been in this lesson. That's what we've been talking about. Not the lesson, but this chapter. In section one, the title, let me pull my book out of here. Section 1, the title is the rules for decision. You have to make a decision, and here are the rules. These are the steps that you have to begin to decide with. 1, you're going to decide, what kind of a day do I want? When your mind has been trained and you're going to get a day of love or a day of fear, who in their right mind chooses fear? Nobody. But we will default to fear if the mind is not trained to think with God. So it's an ongoing decision that we have to make. This is why we learn to forgive ourselves, because we're going to make a lot of mistakes. We are going to default to fear because it was natural. It was taught to us. It was actually not natural. It was nurtured into us, and we believed it because we trusted the people who we thought, that we loved, that we thought knew more than we did. And they actually knew less because they were programmed and they were operating in that false information. They were operating in artificial intelligence because it was not theirs. That was intelligence that came to them from the outside. All right, so you decide, simple, what kind of a day do you want? Then the next decision is you make no decisions by yourself. I'm not going to decide by myself, because if I do it by myself, I'm going to go with the ego. I'm going to decide with something that knows more than me, something that is higher on that ascension path than me. So who is that for you? Maybe you might come to me for some coaching and some help. I can assist you in having you question your thoughts. Or you can go to somebody that's more ascended. You can go to God directly. You can go to the Holy Spirit. You can go to Jesus. You can go to your God. You can go to an angel. You can go to whoever you think. You can even go to a friend that you believe is in a clearer space than you are. And you can begin to not make decisions by yourself. Because when you allow yourself to begin to tap into something of a higher frequency, you will be making different choices. Inevitable. They will be very different than the choices with the ego. The choices with the ego send you into the world of darkness, send you into the world of more dead and more pain and more suffering and more insecurity. You can go there if you want. You have free will. Or you ascend to a world of collaboration, of cooperation, of trust, of gentleness, of kindness. So you make no decisions by yourself. You get smart enough to realize, if I continue to think by myself, like I did when I was 2 years old or 10 or 3 or whatever, you're going to choose to do the same thing and get, the same result. You're not going to get something different. All right. So then the next thing that we're told here is that when you begin to make a choice with God and you know what kind of a day you want, you're going to feel good. You're going to get very clear in your body. Like I can tell food that feels at a low frequency and food that feels at a high frequency. I can feel it because I have resensitized myself. And the purer your body gets, it's because the purer your mind gets. So you begin to feel what feels totally, completely in alignment. And you can hear a song and can tell, no, that's really off. You can hear somebody speak and you can go, no, that's high frequency, low frequency. You can tell. That's why Jesus said to us, those who have eyes to see, those who have ears to hear. It's an alignment with frequency, an alignment with feeling, becoming so sensitive that your body becomes this beautiful tuning fork that can feel the vibration, the frequency of anything around you. So you make a decision that you're not going to think by yourself anymore. Then you decide that you know what you want to feel. You want to feel good. And if you feel bad, you realize, oh, I made a choice by myself. This is where the honesty comes in. I made a choice by myself. I'm angry at that person. Oh, I'm looking at that person by myself. How does God see that person that I'm angry at? God sees that person as a divine being. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're on the journey where they're supposed to be on their journey. You don't want to be with them anymore. You make a decision that doesn't feel good anymore. Maybe this is a relationship that is going to be complete. It's okay to complete relationships, especially with people that you might even be related to, because we're moving to vibrational relationships, soul families, not human families. Human families are soul contracts that are playing out specific roles. And if somebody's playing a role of being dense, well, that soul gets to do that. Just because you are born into that family does not mean that that's where you're supposed to stay. You find your soul family, which is all shifting to vibration. It's not blood-based anymore. It's vibrationally based. All right. Then when you begin to acknowledge, oh, I was wrong, I made a choice by myself, then comes the next beautiful thing. Oh, I want to look at this again. I want to look at this differently. This is why you make the decision again to choose with God. How do you want to feel about this? I want to feel good about this. Why? Because what kind of a day do you want? I want a day where I feel peace. So let's go into the next paragraph that says here, which is so beautiful, paragraph 13. It must be clear that it is easier to have a happy day if you prevent unhappiness from entering at all. Let me repeat that. It is so much easier to stay on a happy trajectory. If you wake up and you decide, I'm going to have a happy day, it's easier to stay in that trajectory if You stop your mind from moving into an unhappy thought. Okay. Once you understand that you are in total control of how you feel, it will become easier and easier to stay there, because the thoughts that want to pull you into judgment, into fear, into less than, when you have that thought, as that thought arises in a quieter mind that is trained to feel, you can feel the discord of one tiny thought. You can have one negative thought during the day, and yes, it is absolutely possible. I am living proof. I know it for me. I go days without a negative thought. And every now and again, a negative thought comes in, especially if I get on the highway here, crazy highway here with all those massive trucks moving on I-70. You can get on the highway, or I can get on the highway and go into, oh, that truck is so close to me. One little thought, I can feel it. I'm like, why am I giving into this fear? Why am I? If I'm supposed to go up against that truck and that's my way to leave here and go to God, why would that I be unhappy about that? So everything becomes a beautiful opportunity to feel very clearly what activates unhappiness. And the more you're practicing staying the course to having a happy day because you woke up, this is the new beginning. I get to decide what kind of a day I want, and I want to feel good. I want a happy day. I'm not going to think by myself, because by myself, small s self, I'm thinking with the ego. So God, what do you want me to think about that trucker? Send them blessings. Maybe they don't know that they just swerved off, and did what they did. Send them blessings. Love on them. Wish them well, because it wishes you well. Because when you realize that we're all one, not I am all alone. You cannot be all alone if you're all one. And you realize we're all one, then that driver is me. It's another aspect of me that I get to then influence the world that I see by sending the messages that I am feeling inside. Love, peace, joy, brother, sister. I want you to get to your destination totally safe. And I want everybody around you to be safe as well. So it is easier to have a happy day if you take deliberate action to prevent unhappiness from entering at all. But this takes practice in the rules that will protect you from the ravages of fear. Yes, waking up is doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, which is to choose with God, and you will get a different result. It is guaranteed, because when you are thinking only to be in the happiest of states, that is a very different world than the one that we have been trained in. Well, some days you're going to be happy, some days, that's just life. Some days you wake up on the right side of the bed, some days you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. That is made up for us to have those experiences, but that doesn't have to be the way things are. This is where you have to decide, are you ready for a new beginning? If you want a new beginning, you must do all things totally differently. Then he goes on to say, so when this has been achieved, the sorry dream of judgment has forever been undone. When you decide that you want just you want to be happy, when you are there, you prevent unhappiness. You don't have to come over here and dilly-dally with your ego anymore. Not that you don't have those thoughts, but they don't get activated if there's not one accepting them and entertaining that thought as real. Once you ignore the ego's judgmental thoughts, and you can't choose the thoughts that you believe, once you ignore those thoughts, your happy day remains happy. It gets easier and easier and easier. And what eventually you begin to realize is that joy was sustainable because you weren't judging what somebody else was doing. You weren't a busybody paying attention to what other people did so that you thought that you were the one who knew what they were doing that was right, that was wrong. That's why I don't want to work with people who are totally asleep, because they don't understand the importance of being willing to be wrong. Because when you're willing to be wrong, then you can get assistance in looking at things differently. But if you think you're right and you're thinking with the ego, where is that going to get you? Not very far. Those are hard conversations. I mean, that does hardly ever shows up in my existence anymore. Um, so it's very simple. The sorry dream of judgment, the dream of the ego, judging that because I'm separate from God, that means I'm all alone, that ends because you enter into the happy dream. Course in Miracles calls it a happy dream. Some of us, here call it a new earth, call it heaven on earth. So what we are moving toward is being with other people who have changed their minds about everything. Yes, everything. And the process starts whenever they're ready and not a moment sooner. And if you move down the road far along enough where you are aware, you can hear somebody else's thoughts, somebody else's ideas, and you can tell that they are in a lower level of consciousness, then you have the ability to be very, very helpful if they want your help. But if they don't want your help, you continue to be the one that shines the truth, that shows by example. You're not going to judge them. They just did something silly. This weekend here, my grandson's birthday, lots of people around, lots of people totally unconscious. And but they are still there. They're still part of my circle. And some were saying things that were totally, completely unconscious. And I just continue to share my truth because I'm not afraid to speak my truth. And I share it if it feels, because I feel the guidance. If it feels, say whatever's on your mind. Not to try and teach anybody anymore. I used to do that, but just being me. And being me, if I share how I perceive life from a place of this is how I do it, then it's dropping seeds because God is using each and every one of us to drop seeds and to populate this world with truths that when they are ready to bloom, they bloom. But I don't do it because I'm trying to teach them. I am sharing because I'm not afraid of my truth. All right. Because I'm not judging. They can be wherever they are. Discernment allows us to recognize, wow, that person is really suffering. Well, let me share. I had similar experience. This is how I deal with it today. Absolutely amazing. But meanwhile, you have need for practicing the rules of its undoing. We have to undo the sorry egoic mind that judges. Let us then consider once again the very first of the decisions which are offered here. This entire section is we're being given the rules of how to play the game of life consciously. If you don't follow these rules, you're going to keep playing the game of life unconsciously, or maybe you might bounce back and forth. That is okay. But the minute that you get really honest, that you want happiness to be the way you experience your day, when you decide you want a day of happiness and you entertain unhappy thoughts, you've got to call yourself out. Because when you are that aware of what's going on in your mind, then you are becoming aligned with God more and more so, because the more you see the ego and you just acknowledge, oh, this is what separates me from God, the more you're coming closer to aligning with God. The more you and God become one. And the more you and God become one, because God is love, the more loving you become. It goes hand in hand. That's just the way it works. So the next paragraph says, we said you can begin a happy day with the determination not to make decisions by yourself. This seems to be a real decision in itself. And yet, you cannot make decisions by yourself. Cannot is italicized. It is impossible for any one of us to think alone. The course in mind training is to train our mind to think with God, not with ego. To think with love, not with fear. You're not going to ever make decisions by yourself. It's not possible because you're not alone. You're not alone. You're all one. So while you are connected to the collective, and you always will be, are you listening to the voice of the collective indoctrination that you have received, passed down generation after generation, that keeps you believing you're small, you're insignificant, and you should be afraid that this is a hard world? Are you going to continue to think with the indoctrination that has decimated this planet, with all the lies that have been told? or you're going to choose to think with God, the thinker of you. If God thought me into existence, why would I think the thoughts that block me from receiving the love of the one that created me? That's what's so beautiful about this journey, is that when you realize that to choose to decide to only think with God is to decide to think with the master creator. I mean, do I want to think with a mind that is so insecure, that is so selfish? Or do I want to think with a mind that creates universes upon universe, that creates so many different beings, so many different races, so many different potentials and possibilities? I'm really clear. I don't want to listen to the little peon mind of mine. I want to listen to the mind that I belong to, which is the mind of God. I want to hear to the thoughts of the master painter, the master creator, the master of technology, the master of well-being, the master of love. That's who I want to listen to. But to do that, I've got to humble myself enough to say, this thought, this little puny thought of mine is a wrong thought. I don't want to listen to that thought anymore. That level of integrity is a painful place to come to when we admit to ourselves that our minds are wrong, our thoughts are wrong. When you're chasing the almighty dollar, that's a wrong thought. When you're trying to find somebody so you're not alone, that's a wrong thought. When you're protecting yourself and putting up barriers from other people, and I've got to put up my boundaries, that thought is the wrong thought. Fear that, oh, how am I going to make it next month? That's a wrong thought. And when you can go, oh, I have been wrong. I've been thinking a lot of wrong thoughts. I've been chasing, seeking, getting, protecting, judging. Those are all wrong thoughts. I want to think with the mind of God. God, what would you have me know that allows my mind to receive more of the power of creativity, the power of creation, the power of elevation? I want to elevate my life to a frequency that this stuff, this 3D world, is not going to be my experience for much longer, because as the world bifurcates, we are going to be experiencing that we're on two different dimensions. Those who are going to be killing themselves and cheating and lying, they're going to go on, they're going to have their experience, but it's almost as if we're going to be on totally different planets. This decade is the decade of bifurcation. What side are you moving toward? This is very simple. You can't stay in the middle much longer and tolerate anything around you that is of a low frequency, because your body is going to be sensitized to feeling it. So we are going to be bifurcating, meaning we're all operating. All of those dimensions that I was talking about, they all happen at one time, because God doesn't experience time. Time is a construct of the ego that has broken things into a line, but it's a spiral. It's a continuous spiral, and everything is happening at the same time. So the low frequency, the high frequency, we're experiencing all those potentials at the same time. So what we're doing is we're choosing to move to the potential of high frequency. And then there's that complete bifurcation. Low frequency is going to disappear from your life because it's not compatible. Vibrationally, it's not compatible. That's how things are shifting. All right. So the only quest really is what you choose to make of them. That's it. Or I said question. The only question really is what you choose to make of them. That's it. Do I want to make of these thoughts in my head that are telling me to be judgmental, that it's okay to be fear? What do I want to make of that? I want to make of that. That's an aspect of me that's immature. I don't need to listen to that anymore. I love it. I forgive it. I bless it. I release it. Very simple, because I am moving into a place where my thoughts are going to be with God. And that's all that I want to experience. Why? Because I am not making decisions by myself. I'm not making decisions with the ego. I'm not making decisions with the wrong mind. I'm making decisions with love, with God. So that's really all. That's really all. The first rule then is not coercion, but a simple statement of a simple fact. You will not make decisions by yourself whenever you decide, for they are made with idols or with God. Idols are things that we've made up. to make me feel better, made up status to make me feel better, made up the movie stars or the famous people or the politician knows more than me, the president knows more than me. Idols, making human gods here idols. They're always going to disappoint. Why? Because they're always taking care of themselves. Not me, not you. It's always selfishly oriented. When you are listening to God, you have God in you. You're not looking to others to validate you. Nobody will be looking to others to validate them. From that place, nobody is going to be operating with a hidden agenda because everybody will be transparent. We will vibrationally feel if anything is off, but that's not going to happen at that frequency. But to get there, we're going to sift and sort through, moving through people that we thought might have been so enlightened or might have been so spiritual, but that we're moving past them. And we're moving past them. And it's okay because you are becoming so much more sensitive to who is deciding with God and who's still deciding with ego. And the spiritualized ego is a big part of the journey. It sounds like God. It talks like God. It does some things like God, but it does not extend love, not fully, only when it's convenient. The spiritualized ego is still serving self. We need to transcend that spiritualized ego and just be spirit, just be love. And you ask help. Oh, talking about the idols. You ask for help from the Antichrist or Christ, and which you choose will join with you and tell you what to do. The Antichrist is just a block to Christ. What is Christ? Christ is the total and complete awareness internally that you and God are one. That's what Christ is. Christ is that place where you know the truth of who you are. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to be when you have made the decision to have a happy day. What kind of a day do you want? I want a day of peace, love, and joy. But that day is only possible if I'm aligned with God, meaning I've got to accept the Christ in me. That is the part of me where God and I become one. When love is all that I am willing to participate in, when integrity, transparency is all that matters, when I know that my authority is God and I live only by what that authority is teaching, then I know my life is fun and easy. Always happens that way. But if I allow my untrained mind to give me unhappy thoughts, to give me judgmental thoughts, to give me blocks to my Christ itself, I am going to have the experience of discomfort. It's very simple. Which life do you want to experience more of? If you choose the life with God, give yourself grace because it's going to take a while to move down the bridge of releasing beliefs that you thought before kept you safe, but really kept you in bondage. Be gentle with yourself. Thank you for coming to these conversations. This is episode 103. It's so exciting. If you want to see more of these episodes, go to my channel, my YouTube channel, Laina Orlando, and they're all there in a playlist called Ascension with A Course in Miracles. I also have, if you want to go through A Course in Miracles, all 365 lessons have been read and explained. They're all there. I love the messages that I get from people every day. Every day, somebody new finds them and they'll make a comment. Oh my God, thank you for explaining it the way. Now this makes sense. I also have in there a playlist, an introduction to A Course in Miracles. So if you're new or you know somebody who's curious about this, it's all free. It's all there in my YouTube channel. And thank you. Thank you so much. So if you enjoyed this, share it with others. Speak your truth. Be bold. We need courageous people who are willing to be courageous enough to transcend their ego and be bold and let people know that you believe in God, you believe in love, whatever you want to call it. You believe in source, you believe in light, you believe in truth. Be bold and stand as that. That's how we're creating a new earth. That's how we're creating a happy dream. All right, everybody. If anybody wants to share, if you got any nuggets from this conversation, please do. If not, as always, thank you so much for coming and being with me. So fun when we do this together. All right, let's go ahead and say goodbye, and we will see you here next week. Bring a friend. Be bold next week and bring a friend. Love you all. Bye-bye.